Hello everyone, welcome to this training session on commercial impact assessment. This training is targeted to technical authors who are responsible for drafting the impact assessment report, which includes a specific section on commercial impact. Today, my colleague Rebecca Shepard and I will be presenting the enhancements made to the process and tool, which will help you complete the commercial impact assessment and support the commercial team to quantify the impact of changes made to existing standards or new standards. Today, we'll be presenting the enhanced tool and process, as I said before, and in particular, we'll start presenting the background, so why we are doing this, why we are updating and enhancing the process and the tool. We will then provide more details on the enhanced process and the relevant updates made to the JIRA workflow. We'll present the tool and define in particular what a key change is, which is a very important concept which supports the quantification done by the commercial team. We'll clarify roles and responsibilities, and we'll also clarify the support provided. By the end of today, you will understand the key enhancements made to the governance process, how to make use of the Commercial Impact Assessment CIA Toolkit. You will understand the importance of identifying key changes made to your documents to help assess the cost implications, the importance of engaging commercial at the appropriate time, at the right time, and also your role and responsibilities as technical authors. Let's start with the background. So why we are introducing these enhancements now, why it is so important. Undertaking a commercial impact assessment for new documents and when updating existing documents is a requirement in the MDD. But at the moment, the MDD illustrates how to estimate the cost implications in Part 1 and then provides two spreadsheets, which are provided on the screen, impact assessment matrices for use by technical authors. It also requires technical authors to undertake a quantitative commercial assessment. Last year, we carried out a review of impact assessments completed in the past against the current toolkit and realized that limited commercial assessments were actually sound from a quantitative point of view. The current cost impact toolkit frequently resulted in incomplete assessments, limited evidence provided, and therefore limited use for affordability checks, claim efficiencies, and support decision making. What we want to achieve then is to improve process and tool for assessing the cost implications to help technical authors provide what is really needed and support commercial in quantifying the impact. In doing so, we enhance the quality of the outcome, avoid rework by assessing commercial impact at the right time. We don't want to waste time, for example, doing multiple assessments against different versions of the same document. And we will also match to knowledge and expertise. Based on a consultation that we did last year with selected technical authors, there was a clear message that technical authors can provide detailed technical knowledge on the change and its implications. However, detailed commercial considerations should be assessed by experts in this field, hence the commercial input and the input from other directorates who are best placed to comment on contractual and commercial aspects. Ultimately, through this enhanced process and tool, we will be able to better demonstrate affordability and support decision making. Over the next few slides, I will be presenting the enhanced process. This slide is showing an outline governance process for Category A changes. Today, we'll be looking at this as the most complete example. However, the principles presented here also apply to Category B and C changes, with the simplifications between the categories of change that we've introduced previously. So please watch the relevant webinar or review the MDD for more information. Focusing on Category A, These are the steps in the governance process, starting from enter the standard review program, the SRP, up to publication. The steps that will be presented today in more detail are those identified in the green box, from document development planning up to technical standard committee stage included. So those are relevant from a commercial perspective. A key improvement we've made to the process is that the TSC stage has been split into relevant substages for two main reasons. Firstly, we wanted to formalize and reflect what's happening in reality. We know, for example, that in this stage, we don't have just consultation, we also have other activities like comment resolution or ensuring that the final documentation is MDD compliant. Therefore, the TSC stage has been updated to reflect such activities and ensure that we are able to track them into JIRA for management purposes. For those who are not familiar with JIRA, that is our program management tool, and separate training is available on that as well, in particular now that these changes have been introduced. So you can see now on the screen that from in confirmation of category of change, we now have these additional steps which effectively are already existed, some of them, but they have been formalized. The second reason why the TSC stage has been split is to help deliver quantitative assessments at the right time. To do that, we brought forward the content specialist review into this stage. It is now called the in-quality review. For those of you who are familiar with the previous process, this activity happened during the approval stage, whereas it is felt that it should really happen at this stage to help then develop a stable draft for commercial to review. We've then introduced a new stage called in quantitative assessment, which is very much at the moment focused on commercial quantification. So I'll come back to this in more detail over the next few slides. Let me now present the different stages and explain what is relevant to you. Let's start with the document development planning stage. During this stage, the technical author will be developing the DDP, and commercial considerations may emerge. Technical authors can then engage commercial to ask queries, and commercial will be available to support. During the drafting stage, the technical author will produce a draft document as well as the impact assessment report, which will contain the commercial impact assessment toolkit that will be presented in detail by my colleague Rebecca. Importantly, technical authors will produce a qualitative assessment with supporting evidence. And again, technical authors can engage commercial to ask queries, and commercial will be available to support. Once the document is ready for consultation, the TSC chair and TSG approver will check the category of change, and if satisfied, will move the document into consultation. A key takeaway for technical authors is therefore they will be producing a qualitative assessment during drafting using the Key Changes tab in the commercial CIAT, which will be presented later on. Let's move on to the consultation process. The TSC chair will continue to lead the consultation. Comments on commercial aspects can be made by all consultees, and commercial in particular will be commenting on the draft document as well as on the qualitative impact assessment produced by technical authors and share potential risks and contractual implications. Commercial representative may also engage the technical author to ask specific questions for clarity and will share the outcome during the consultation period. The commercial team has been engaged extensively over the past few months and is well aware and supportive of the enhancements made to the process. The key takeaway from this is that commercial will be responsible for commenting on qualitative impact assessment and share potential risks and contractual implications during the consultation period, which will then be reviewed in detail by the technical author in the next stage. After consultation, technical authors will review and address comments received. As I said before, we have now introduced a dedicated stage for this activity so that we can distinguish between the time in consultation and time for comment resolution. That will inform our wider monitoring of governance stages and help us continuously improve how documents are drafted and reviewed. In most cases, all key changes will be identified in advance of the consultation stage. However, should a key change be introduced or substantially altered during consultation, the technical author may engage commercial to ensure the CIAT is updated to incorporate this amendment during the comment resolution stage. Once all comments have been addressed, a decision on whether another consultation is needed shall be made by the technical author and the TSC chair. In any case, comments resolution will be shared with the consultees for information. At the end of this stage, the technical author shall confirm whether the documentation is ready for quality check by content specialists and shall provide all governance deliverables so they can be checked for MDD compliance by content specialists. Just to clarify, this is about completeness of deliverables and MDD compliance, but the quality checks will stay with the Technical Standard Committee and the relevant chair. An important deliverable that needs to be completed at this stage is the change log. This will be used by commercial for quantitative cost assessments. It plays a key part in the quantification. It needs to be complete and provide all information needed to understand the changes made to a document. A key takeaway for technical authors during the comment resolution stage is to review commercial considerations, update the commercial impact assessment tool as relevant, and finalize the change log for Category A changes only. Key takeaways for technical authors are that after comment resolution, the documentation may come back to them for further review after the quality check by content specialists, the TSC chair acceptance stage, and the TSC chair ratification stage. This slide provides a summary of key takeaways on the process for technical authors. Please use it as a checklist. It does contain the key information you need about the enhancements made to the process itself.
As Maria Pia introduced the process, she mentioned the commercial impact assessment tool, which is to be completed at drafting stage. On the next few slides, I'll present this tool, particularly focusing on the Key Changes tab, which is where the technical author is to provide their input. So firstly, what do technical authors need to do? So technical authors will use the Commercial Impact Assessment Toolkit to develop a qualitative assessment. This will focus on their identification and description of key changes based on their technical knowledge. The toolkit provides an intuitive and consistent framework to define key changes. And on the next slide, I'll talk through what a key change is. So what is a key change? In this context, a key change is something that's different from what is done in current industry practice and which may have commercial implications. So for example, updates to an existing standards which have been made to incorporate established practice on a network, they do not have significant cost implications, as in practice it was already implemented. However, if there's any uncertainty about whether or not a modification is a key change, it should be included. The Commercial Impact Assessment Toolkit is an Excel spreadsheet made up of the following tabs shown on the screen. The Key Changes tab, shown in green, is the one that the technical author is to complete. This toolkit is to be used for categories of change, A and B, and Category C, its use is optional. If you're unsure what a category change means, please refer to the help pages or the further training on the standards governance process. Now I will present the Key Changes tab, which is the tab on which the technical author will provide their input. So on the screen here is what the Key Changes tab looks like. The two boxes in orange show where the technical author is to provide their input. So that's relating to the document details at the top, and then details relating to the key changes, which is the bulk of the work at the base. You can press the plus or minus signs at the edge to hide or expand rows. Because you can hide the document details, there's a little box at the top which will turn green when the document details are complete and red if they're incomplete. There's also a count up there with the number of key changes. On the next few slides, I'm going to talk through how to complete the Key Changes tab, which can be completed following an iterative 6-stage approach. So the first step in the process is to identify key changes. As I mentioned previously, a key change is anything that is a change to current industry practice. You write your key change under the Key Changes heading, including the scope and the impact compared to the current situation. And it's also very helpful if you can include the location in the document as relevant. So that's the specific clauses or sections. There's a few examples provided in the toolkit, so I'll read out the one at the top. It's the use of a single combined equipment cabinet in place of 2 cabinets, clauses X and Y. So you can see there it's saying what the change is, how it differs from the previous situation, and then referencing to the clause that it's contained in. So once you've thought through all the key changes to your document and written them down, describing them appropriately, you then need to consider the commercial implications. In the toolkit, there's a handy set of questions, a checklist, that you can run through just saying very simply yes, no, TBC if you're really not sure. And if you're saying yes, there's also an option to subdivide the impact into significant, medium or minor, but you can just leave that as yes if you're not sure. To help you with this, there is a checklist on the checklist tab which provides further guidance notes for each of the questions. So if you're unsure about what any of them are asking, refer to the guidance note which provides more detail. So you can see here, for example, the first question is on legislation. It's got a question there and a guidance note on the right. So once you've identified the key changes and you've worked through the checklist to consider the commercial implications, you might find that some key changes have both savings and costs associated with them. If that's the case, please separate these out onto two separate rows as shown on the screen here. So the next step is to provide some narrative to inform the commercial assessment. So this is in the column entitled Comments, Context and Impact. And under here, please add any comments that you think can be relevant to commercial to better understand the context and impact. So that's clarifying the potential risks and mitigation measures. And this can be informed by working through the checklist. So you might find actually you're doing items 2 and 4 in tandem. The information in the narrative to be shared here is to be based on your technical knowledge. That's why we're asking you to share it with commercial. You've got a much better understanding of the changes that have been made and the impacts that that might have in real life. The next step in the process then is to provide implementation considerations. And this is a series of columns with a few simple questions with drop-down lists for you to answer. So firstly, when will the impact be seen? Is it one-off or is it recurring? When will the impact be seen duration-wise? So will it be just in the immediate term, or will that cost continue to be seen in the medium or the long term? Are there any specific conditions in which the impact will be seen? So for example, does it only occur after damage, or is it something that occurs in the outset of every project? And then if there's any any further information you can provide on base unit, so how it could be costed. Is it a cost per scheme? Is it a cost per kilometre of a road, or cost per unit of material? And then any commentary you have on that base unit. The final step then is to share evidence. So this is very much linked with the implementation considerations in the previous step. So this is if you've got any data or information you'd like to share with commercial that will help them quantify the impact. So maybe you've done your own quantitative assessment of the impact of a specific change. Please share that and any assumptions behind that. Or if you just know that there's any documents that provide that quantified information that will really help commercial base their assessment on, please share that, because you know where that information is. Commercial are not experts in your field. Once you've gone through that process, have a think, look afresh at your document and think, are there any more key changes? The thinking you've just done might have nudged something in your mind to make you think, actually, that change there is a key change. So add that onto the list and away you go again. So finally, there's just a couple of other bits of additional information that need to be shared when you are dealing with category A or B changes. So when you're dealing with category A changes, so these are major rewrites or new document development, it's essential to develop a complete change log. And that's because key changes may be hidden when an entire document is updated and created. And that change log will be used by commercial to undertake their quantitative assessment. So it's very important that that change log is complete. If you're unsure what I'm talking about a change log, please refer to the help pages or the specific training relating to that. When you're dealing with category B changes, so these are changes to requirements of existing documents, it's essential that you develop a complete clause change summary. So that shows all the changes that have been made and also provides the background to those changes. And again, this document, the clause change summary, will be used by commercial to undertake their quantitative assessment. And therefore it's important that that document is completed and accurate. So before we move on, I just want to pause and think through some of the benefits of the enhanced toolkit. So the toolkit supports you as technical authors in providing applicable and useful information to commercial. It doesn't duplicate information elsewhere, it's solely related to commercial information, and it's the repository for the sharing of that information between technical authors and commercial. By using an Excel spreadsheet, it has a consistent structure, and it also makes it easy to export for reporting purposes or comparison purposes. So on the next couple of slides, I'll just present the commercial quantification tab, which is the tab which commercial will input onto. So at that quantification stage that Maria Pia mentioned earlier, the commercial team will undertake a quantitative assessment of the commercial impact. And they will complete the commercial tab, which is shown on the screen here. So this isn't a tab that technical authors need to complete. So the commercial tab will be completed along with links or text of any additional evidence. Other directorates may also be consulted on to share information on contractual matters, and so there's some space there on this tab for that information to be shared. To conclude this section, we'll just talk through a few key takeaways on the commercial impact assessment tool. So the technical author will produce a qualitative cost assessment using the commercial impact assessment toolkit. Commercial will produce a quantitative cost assessment based on a stable draft and the information provided in the commercial impact assessment toolkit. The change log for category A changes and the clause change summary for category B and C will play a key part in the quantitative cost assessment, and therefore it's vital that these are complete and accurate. A key change, which is terminology used in the toolkit, is something that's different from what's done in current industry practice and which may have commercial implications. Technical authors' detailed knowledge on the implication of the change is invaluable, and it's this knowledge that is being captured in the Commercial Impact Assessment Toolkit. So before we close, we'll review the outcomes of the assessment. Think through why we're undertaking this commercial impact assessment. So the purpose of a commercial impact assessment is to review documents to reduce the commercial impact. So if you find that the impact on National Highways budget is more adverse than previously anticipated, the technical author should assess whether or not changes to the RAD should or could be made to reduce its commercial impact. And to put it into context, the commercial impact assessment will inform the wider impact assessment and the following decisions that will be made by approvers and authorisers. So maybe the change proposed is acceptable as it is, which is the outcome we all hope for. Or maybe the scope or application of the change should be revised to reduce the cost of implementation while still achieving worthwhile benefits. The technical author may also consider whether other requirements within the RAD could be eliminated or reduced in scope to compensate. Or maybe the change proposed has to be abandoned because the cost implications are unaffordable or they've increased to a point where the related benefits cannot be justified. So as you're working through the commercial impact assessment, running through that checklist, thinking of the key changes, make sure you're beginning with the end in mind and keep bearing in mind how this will be used. Finally, we'd like to share some good practice with you. So we reviewed recent submissions of commercial impact assessments, so this was prior to the toolkit being available and the enhanced process. There was one excellent example that stood out, and this example provided a clear identification of the proposed change or changes, so that's the key change. It provided an identification and breakdown of the sources of the cost impact. So this was things like material costs, quality assurance costs, and implementation costs. And all of these can be identified by working through that checklist that I mentioned earlier. It also provided clarity around savings and additional costs. So what I mentioned earlier about separating out the savings and additional costs, please do that. It also included a clear narrative to inform the commercial assessment. So as the technical author sharing their detailed knowledge on the implication of the change, and that information is invaluable. So please use the boxes on that toolkit to share that knowledge that you have. And then finally and importantly, it also included a good body of evidence. So that was review of current standards, clarifying what is current standard practice by suppliers, data from cost research, data extracted from National Highways registers of a representative sample, and also an indication of the limitations of the data. And you can see how that's separated out. So one page with that identification of the changes and breaking down the sources of the impact and some narrative behind that, and then 5 pages of that evidence to provide the information that commercial need to undertake that quantitative assessment.
Let me now finish with some closing remarks. This slide clarifies the support that is available for implementation of the enhanced process and tool for commercial impact assessment. You've got this slide pack containing the training slides, the MDD rules which have been updated, and you are also available relevant help pages. We've updated Jira workflow as well. The toolkit we presented today is available for you to use. And for any questions, Becky Ansel is leading on weekly drop-in sessions on governance, so feel free to join using the link provided. Key contacts in the technical standards group are Kurt and Becky. At the start of this presentation, I did identify the objectives for today. Let me recap them. Today we presented the Enhanced Commercial Impact Assessment Tool, CIA tool, and the relevant process. We've shared some background information covering where we are now and the issue of incomplete assessments. We've then presented the enhanced process, the new steps in the technical standard committee stage, and key roles and responsibilities. Rebecca has presented the CIA tool, the Excel spreadsheet containing the Key Changes tab, complemented by the checklist, and the Commercial Review tab for Commercial to Complete. We've then clarified the support that is available for you. We hope that now you will understand the key enhancements made to the governance process, how to make use of the CIA toolkit, the importance of identifying key changes, and we've extensively presented this concept today because that is fundamental for commercial to undertake a quantitative assessment of commercial implications. We hope that you also understand the importance of engaging commercial at the appropriate time and also your role and responsibilities. Thank you for attending this training session. Hope you found it useful. For any questions, we are available and we are happy to support you in the implementation and embedment of the enhanced process for commercial assessment. There is now a quiz to test your understanding. It will not take more than 5 minutes. Thank you.
We're now going to move on to a few quiz questions to test your understanding of the content that's just been gone through. If you're unsure of the answers of any of these questions, feel free to go back and re-listen to this presentation. So, first question, what is a key change? So in the context of a commercial impact assessment. So is it any change made to the document? Is it any change made to the document that might have a commercial impact? Is it any change that is different from current industry practice that might have a commercial impact? Or is it any change that is different from current industry practice that might have commercial impact except where required by law? So have a think about what the answer is. Stop this webinar to take a minute if you need it, and then continue listening to hear the answer. The answer is C, any change that's different from current industry practice that might have a commercial impact. And the extract at the bottom there is from the guidance notes, highlighting this point. So key change is anything that's different from what's done in current industry practice but may have a commercial implications, and therefore not all modifications are key changes. However, if you have any uncertainty whether or not a modification is a key change, just include it. And finally, even if a change is mandatory by law, the cost implication still needs to be assessed for budgeting purposes. So next question, are technical authors responsible for quantifying the commercial impact? Yes, no, or it depends. So stop this webinar, take a minute to think about the answer, and when you're happy, continue listening. So the answer is no. Again, the extract from the guidance notes at the bottom there. Technical authors are not expected to quantify the impact of document changes. However, should you have any information that can help commercial to undertake a quantitative assessment, please share it through the Commercial Impact Assessment tool. This will be used as essential evidence to support the SES business case for RIS efficiencies. So question number 3. The Commercial Impact Assessment forms part of the Impact Assessment Report. This is used to inform decisions made to by approvers and authorisers. What are the possible outcomes? So could it be that the change proposed is acceptable as it is? The scope or application of the change should be revised to reduce the cost of implementation while still achieving worthwhile benefits? Or the change proposed is to be abandoned as the cost implications are unaffordable or have increased to the point where the related benefits cannot be justified? or is it any of the above? So stop the webinar, take a minute to think about the answer, and then continue listening. So the answer is, of course, D, any of the above. So the commercial impact assessment tool has been developed to present key changes that have been introduced in existing or new documents to senior management, which have or might have commercial implications. The final goal is to support decision making and demonstrate affordability in the short, medium and long term. Question 4. When do the commercial team get involved? So select all that are relevant from the document development plan stage, at drafting, at consultation stage, at comment resolution, at quantitative assessment stage, or at approval stage. So stop this webinar, take a minute to think about the answer, and when you're ready, continue listening. So the answer to this question is actually all of A to E, so from document development plan stage all the way through to quantitative assessment stage. So the technical authors may engage commercial to ask questions around the commercial implications during the drafting stage and document development plan stage, thus in advance of the consultation stage. Items D and E there, comment resolution and quantitative assessment stage, are new. They previously were incorporated within the consultation stage. So question number 5, what category of change requires a commercial impact assessment? And again, select all that are relevant from category A, B, C or D. Stop this webinar, take a minute to think about the answer, and when you're ready, continue listening. So the answer's a bit of a trick question here. A and B require a commercial impact assessment. Category C is optional. Category D shouldn't have any commercial implications, so it's not required.